So Dell's sleek and sexy XPS ultra-portable laptops just got upgraded with a tasty bit of 11th gen Intel Tiger Lake action. Rawr. Beefing up the performance and making them seriously enticing prospects for creative and pro users. And this here Dell XPS 9310 will cost you from £1,400, so a similar sort of asking price to Apple's fresh new MacBook Pros. Although the configuration that I've been testing out for this review will set you back 1,749 quid. Definitely a big fat stack of cash, but is it actually worth it? Well, I've been really testing out and putting the Dell XPS 13 through its paces for this full review, doing a bit of video editing, gaming, all of that good stuff. So here is my in-depth Dell XPS 13 Tiger Lake review, and for more on the latest greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, just when you think that laptops can't get any more ridiculously skinny, along comes another size 0 Dell XPS. This latest incarnation of the XPS 13 measures just under 15mm at its thickest point, and it weighs a measly 1.2 kilos. So this really is one of the most portable machines of 2020, a strong rival to that MacBook Air. And thankfully, that sleek aluminium frame is seriously impressively tough as well. I know I'm not exactly built like Dolph Lundgren or anything, but I really seriously struggled to bend this thing unless I had a brick. And for added durability, you've even got a bit of Gorilla Glass 6 coating on that screen as well, so hopefully that should prove nice and scratch resistant. Dell's design hasn't really changed that much at all versus older XPS laptops. You still get that simple silver finish on the outside, plus that lovable soft touch interior, which is very pleasant on your palms. However, I did also personally find that wrist rest gets alarmingly greasy at times, and I don't think I've got particularly oily hands, and I certainly wasn't working on the XPS 13 while chowing down on a doner and chips. As for the actual connectivity as well, sadly, as you'd kind of expect from a super skinny ultra portable laptop, that is rather on the basic side. What you get here is just a pair of USB-C ports with Thunderbolt 4 support, one housed on either side of the laptop. And that right there is your whack, apart from of course the obligatory headphone jack and a bit of micro SD memory card slot action on the other side. When you open up the laptop, you can't help but be impressed by that 13.4-inch IPS screen, which completely fills the inside of that lid, showcasing some of the skinniest bezels of all time. And it is a bloody lovely display too. You got full HD plus resolution, which is plenty for a panel this size, so photos, videos and everything else look perfectly sharp, and you don't miss out on any finer details when editing. Color reproduction is spot on too. You've got a full 100% of the sRGB gamut covered and 77% of that Adobe RGB, with deep blacks and crisp whites serving up sharp HDR style contrast. Likewise, the XPS 13 9310 is great when you say bollocks to work and chuck on some Netflix instead. The 16:10 aspect ratio helps to reduce letterboxing for movies, and again those visuals make for an eye-poppingly fantastic viewing experience. The screen surface is anti-reflective, and the display brightness itself can stretch from 50 nits all the way up to a rather mighty 500 nits, or rather just shy of 500 nits, so certainly if you want to work outdoors, that is not a problem. And on the audio front as well, no worries there. I certainly enjoyed listening to my lockdown playlist, basically lots of angry shouty metal music, using both Bluetooth headphones and wired phones as well, all worked a treat. And the Dell XPS 13 9310 also serves up some surprisingly beefy stereo speakers as well, and while they're not particularly great for music, they're certainly fine for everything else. Sadly, those speaker grills are mounted on the bottom edges of the laptop, but they still hit a high enough volume so I could clearly hear a show or a podcast that I was streaming while knocking up a snack in the kitchen. And the reason that those speakers are shunted away underneath is because Dell's chiclet keyboard stretches the full width of the XPS 13 9310. Seriously, there is bugger all space wasted. So even though this is a teeny weeny 13-inch laptop, you still get a very comfortable typing experience, more akin to a 14 or 15-incher. Each key is afforded plenty of space, no single row return keys or super squashed cursor keys or any of that horrendous bollocks on here, oh no. Plus, despite that crazy thin design, you've got a surprising travel depth when you strike each key, and no sponginess to speak of. You've got your 2 tiers of backlighting, and basically everything just works as expected. Great stuff. In the top corner of that keyboard, you'll find the Dell XPS 13's power button, and that's actually got a built-in fingerprint sensor as well, so literally just a quick tap of your digit, you'll be into the laptop in less than a second. And if for whatever reason you happen to have really sticky fingers, perhaps you've been baking or whatever, we don't judge here, then no worries, you've also got built-in facial recognition via that dinky little webcam up top on the Dell XPS 13. And it is just a basic 720p HD webcam, but it seems to do the job just fine for your facial recognition, even recognizing you in quite low light ambient environments. That cam also does the job just fine for Zoom chats, Microsoft Team meetups, all of that good stuff too. You will look a bit grainy if you don't get some decent light on you, and it doesn't cope too well with contrast, so for God's sakes do not sit with a window at your back. But otherwise it's all good, bar the lack of a privacy switch, which is slightly annoying. And the built-in mics in the laptop as well also do the job for your Zoom chats and such forth if you don't happen to have a headset. Now let's get onto the meaty subject of performance. My Dell XPS 13 review model came with Intel's latest Core i7 1165 G7 chipset stuffed inside, backed by a very healthy 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. And while you don't get a dedicated GPU here, not too surprising given the size of the bloody thing, Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics do promise twice the performance for gaming and also creative apps compared with the previous Intel 10th generation chipsets. And first impressions are definitely strong. You've got that instant wake feature on board, so the laptop goes from fast asleep to ready for action in literally as long as it takes for you to scan your finger or face. Benchmarking with the likes of Cinebench threw up quite respectable scores for a machine with an integrated GPU, in that case 2042. And I found that I could happily indulge in any creative task on this thing as well, be it editing 4K video on the fly or tweaking my high-res pics in GIMP, although the latter wasn't exactly silky smooth when you're actually moving or scaling images. And again, the 4K video editing experience again took a little while to process video, things like that, but as long as you're patient, it will do the job absolutely fine. And as long as your expectations aren't too wild and crazy, you can do some respectable amounts of gaming on the Dell XPS 13. The original Doom reboot rather optimistically wanted to run on the Ultra settings, which of course was a stuttery mess, but once I bumped it down to just the regular normal settings, I found that it was generally pretty smooth, occasionally dipping into the 20 to 25 FPS region, but apart from that, still very damn playable. And less demanding titles of course ran absolutely fine. However, I did notice that when you're really putting the Dell XPS 13 through its paces, that bottom edge does get a little bit warm at times, although thankfully not to chestnut roasting levels. And despite that crazy thin finish, you do actually have two internal fans to help keep that hot air moving out of the laptop, and even when they really get whirring, they're still no louder than a hamster's bowel movements. Wireless performance is strong too, with Wi-Fi 6 on board, which is great news if you've upgraded your home router already. And you've got some pleasingly fast storage stuffed inside this thing as well. That 1TB SSD clocked read speeds consistently over 3 gigabits per second, and write speeds not far behind that. So thankfully you aren't hanging about the place waiting for apps to eventually load up. And of course the final key factor when judging ultra portables is the battery life, and that's an area where the XPS has usually put in quite a tidy performance. And when I was testing out the Dell XPS 9310, I was usually hammering it pretty hard, so either full on video editing, either that or I'd be working in Chrome with about a dozen tabs open, streaming Deezer music and also downloading massive files in the background. And even then I would still usually drag a solid sort of 4.5 to 5 hours of use out of it from a full charge. And of course if you're just going to be, watching a bit of YouTube or something a bit more basic, then you can expect to get a lot longer than that. So as far as ultra portable laptops go, that battery life is pretty damn decent. And that right there is what I think of the fresh new Dell XPS 13 9310 with that Intel Tiger Lake action stuffed inside. And certainly if you're not swayed by Apple's new M1 Macbooks, then this is definitely one of the better ultra portables that you'll find out there, especially if you're dead set on doing creative tasks but keeping that really skinny, thin and light build. Now, have you been using the Dell XPS 30? It'd be great to hear your own thoughts down in the comments below. Please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.